Greetings, my fellow film lovers, sovereign thinkers. This is L3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Swampy Mango, South Florida. And today's date is Friday, June 14th, 2019. So let us begin. Good day, folks. Hopefully everyone's doing well out there. Yes, and today is President Trump's birthday. He turned 73. Plus, he could, all you metal fans out there, Kim Peterson, also known as King Diamond, turned 63. Wow, time flies, my friends. Happy birthday to all those folks out there, and the rest of the beautiful people on this date. Same with you folks. Happy birthday. Yes, and today is Flag Day, of course, and you got folks waving American flags. Some of them probably don't even know what's it about. But it's one of those days you show pride. It's always should be in the heart and soul as well, not through bureaucracy or government knows best. Well, enough of my little small talk here. I'm at Cafe Collective, located at 100 North Federal Highway, Suite C4-3 in Fort Lauderdale, right? And actually the facility itself is on the corner of 7th Avenue and Broward Boulevard. That's like the southeast corner within the Victoria Park District. Well, it's funny because everyone's right now. There is things happening on CBS News. David T. Suspect Shooter speaks out. And of course, everyone's also about Cuba Gooding Jr. turned himself in for groping. All right, and of course the tensions that's going on with Iran. And of course, Pompeo said, "Oh, it's actually them." Yeah, that's what happens when you have a CIA director turn Secretary of State. Got to question all these things, folks. It's not being anti-American either, but when it comes to imperialism or playing the king of the world or leader of the empire, you have to question these things. Before I do that, looks like Julian Assange has been having an extradition hearing, 5-day extradition hearing in February 2020. This came out today. And this is by Joe Lawyer from Consortium News. It says here, decision on Assange's fate will not come for at least another 8 months. A decision on whether Julian Assange will be extradited to the United States to face charges under the Espionage Act will not come until the end of February 2020 at the earliest. The Westminster's Magistrate Court ruled on Friday. Tristan Kirk, the London Evening Standard Court reporter, tweeted, Julian Assange will not face a full extradition hearing until next year. Courts hears 5-day hearing to be listed on a date after February 24th. Okay, so the February 28th to the 29th will be the decision. Hopefully, it won't be the case. It'll be sent over here, but we'll continue on. I'll continue on. Kirk said he argued his way into the courtroom after he and the rest of the media had been barred by security guard from entering the public hearing that lasted under 30 minutes. All hail to press freedom, right? Yeah. God save the Queen. Do. A fascist regime. All right. Reuters reported as Ben Brandon, the lawyer representing the United States, ran through a summary of the accusations against him, including that he cracked a U.S. Defense Network password. Assange said, I didn't break any passwords whatsoever. The WikiLeaks publisher told the court that 175 years of my life is effectively at stake. According to Sky News, he addressed the judge as Lady Artburnout, saying WikiLeaks is nothing but a publisher. Mark Summers, the lawyer representing Assange, told the court there are multiplicity of profound issues with the extradition case. Sky News reported. We said it represents an outrage and full frontal assault on journalistic rights, he said. Assange spoke to the court via video link from Belmarsh Prison where he served a 50-week sentence for skipping bail on a Swedish sexual assault investigation. Assange sought refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy in London in June 2012 to avoid onward extradition from Sweden to the United States. He was arrested on April 11 when Ecuador allowed British police to enter the embassy. Yep. So the president Moreno actually got butt slammed by the IMF for that $4 billion loan. Hopefully, it's really worth it, sir. The British Home Secretary signed the extradition request for the United States on Wednesday. Sajid Javid said Thursday, "I want to see justice done at all times if we got a legitimate extradition request. So I signed it, but the final decision is now with the courts." Both sides in the extradition battle will now have 8 months to prepare their case. Assange's Belmarsh sentence will end at the end of March 2020, meaning he will remain in the maximum security prison until full extradition hearing. And of course, you can see there's a video thing on here, like 3 hours, 30 minutes long, from Rupley, which is RT, and about the people talking about letting them go and all that. And Flick Ruby tweeted, "The Assange case is about shutting down investigative journalism, and public inquiry," says John Pilger, outside the Westminster Magistrate Courts. "I have to agree completely because it is a war on journalism, war on the press, etc. And this extradition, take it to the United States, to be very frank, is hands off our Bill of Rights. War on the press, etc. War on our Bill of Rights." That's what's been happening. That's the message you want to send. But it's going to be a cloak and dagger adventure for sure. And when I was hearing some of the reports from 21st Century Y, which are very good, and many others, they got lawyers in the United States ready to go to fight to represent Julian Assange. So I'm expecting the Department of Justice is going to receive a lot more than they can chew. Mark my words on that, folks. I'm expecting huge blowback in due time. And if President Trump pursues this, it can jeopardize the 2020 election. Okay, just to let you folks know. I'm not too pleased about this. It's just a prime example. Freedom of press has to be preserved, not just in the United States or under our Bill of Rights, but around the world. So it's a yes to freedom, no to tyranny, and defy the one world order. That's all I gotta say about that. And this one here, I'm gonna talk about the ordeal with Iran, which it said that they're responsible for attacking a Norway oil tanker, and of course Mike Pompeo says it was the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's all their fault. We got to support free navigation. We have to use force and overthrow their regime. And just to let you folks know, I'm not lovey-dovey with their government over there as well, to be very frank. But I'm not here to crucify. Well, one of the areas you got to look at is the history and so forth. Of course, we all recall, many of us here recall about this 1953 CIA coup, all right, which MI5 and British Persian Oil, which is now British Petroleum, are responsible for the overthrow of Milosevic. And it's interesting because some of the even national interest in an article about him, and of course, maybe the people in Iran may not be crazy about him. So they took advantage of that division, divide and conquer. I know most of them wanted to support nationalizing the oil fields. So now they still want to use the same old song and dance, 40-year of tension because of the hostage crisis. But you can thank the 53 coup, Operation Ajax, for making that a reality. That's in that top book called Blowback by Yalmaz Johansson. I know I said this a few times. Folks, when you start running your mouth about we got to attack Iran, read that damn book. Then you could talk. They could address this matter to me, all right? But this is what came out yesterday. by Land Destroyer Report by Tony Carlucci, which he represents the New Eastern Outlook. It says here, convenient tanker attacks as the U.S. seeks war with Iran. Here's a little quote here. It says, it would be far more preferable if the United States could cite an Iran provocation as justification for airstrikes before launching them. Clearly, the more outrageous, the more deadly the move, the unprovoked Iranian action, the better off the United States would be. Of course, it would be very difficult for the United States to goad Iran into such a provocation without the rest of the world recognizing this game, which would then undermine it. It's from the Brookings Institution, Which Path to Persia? It came out in 2009. And I shared that with a friend of mine on Facebook and as a comment. And of course, he gave me a thumbs up because you got to really read these things and see what these think tanks want to do, these globalist think tanks trying to pursue here. So, as it reads here, for the second time since the United States unilaterally withdrew from the so-called Iran nuclear deal, Western reports of suspect attacks on oil tankers near the Strait of Hormuz have attempted to implicate Iran. The London Guardian, in an article titled, 2 oil tankers struck in suspected attacks in Gulf of Oman, would claim 2 oil tankers have been hit in suspected attacks in the Gulf of Oman and the crews evacuated. A month after a similar incident in which 4 tankers in the region were struck. The article also claimed Gulf tensions have been close to boiling point for weeks as the U.S. puts maximum economic pressure onto Iran in an attempt to force it to reopen talks about the 2015 nuclear deal, which the U.S. pulled out last year. Iran has repeatedly said it has no knowledge of the incident and did not instruct surrogate forces to attack Gulf shipping or Saudi oil installations. The Guardian would admit that the investigations into the previous alleged attacks in May carried out by the UAE found sophisticated mines were used but fell short of implicating Iran as a culprit. The article would note U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton, without evidence, claimed that Iran was almost certainly involved. Yes, kind of, sort of, it's the only way. Thank you, Bolton. If I assume, I could get a high-paying job just like you, right? You walking sap. We'll continue on here. All too convenient. This news of attacked oil tankers near the Straits of Hormuz blamed by the U.S. on Iran comes all too conveniently on the heels of additional steps taken by Washington to pressure Iran's economy and further undermine the Iranian government. U.S. just recently ended waivers for nations buying Iranian oil. Nations including Japan, South Korea, Turkey, China, and India will now face U.S. sanctions if they continue importing Iranian oil. All hail the sanctions, another act of war. Hip, hip, hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. That's what happens when you study history, folks, for these knuckleheads, yeah? So, as it reads here, coincidentally, one of the ships attacked this week carrying Japan-related cargo, the Guardian will report. Also convenient was the U.S. recent designation of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, just ahead of the series of provocations attributed to Iran. AP, in a May 2019 article titled, President Trump warns Iran over sabotage oil in tankers in Gulf. Were claimed 4 oil tankers anchored in the Mideast were damaged by what Gulf officials describe as sabotage, though satellite images obtained by the Associated Press on Tuesday showed no major visible damage to the vessels. Two ships allegedly were Saudi, one Emirati, and one Norwegian, the article also claimed. A U.S. official in Washington, without offering any evidence, told the AP that American military team's initial assessment indicated Iranian allies used explosives to blow holes in the ships. And that the U.S. has warned ships that Iran or its proxies could be targeted maritime traffic in the region. America is deploying an aircraft carrier and B-52 bombers to the Persian Gulf to counter alleged, still unspecified threats from Tehran. The more recent incident will likely be further exploited by the U.S. to continue building up its military forces in the region, applying pressure on Iran and moving the entire globe closer toward war with Iran. The U.S. has already arrayed its forces across the Middle East to aid in ongoing proxy wars against Iran and its allies, as well as prepare for the conventional war with Tehran itself. All this amounts to a renewed push toward a more direct conflict between the United States and Iran after years of proxy war in Syria. Washington-backed forces have decisively lost. There's also a continuation of long-standing U.S. foreign policy regarding Iran put into motion over a decade ago and carried out by each respective presidency since. Washington's long-standing plans, continued sanctions, and the elimination of waivers are part of Washington's unilateral withdrawal from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, or the Iran nuclear deal. The deal was signed in 2015 and with the U.S. withdrawing in 2018. While the decision is portrayed as political differences between former U.S. President Barack Obama and current U.S. President Donald Trump, in reality, the plan's proposal, signing, and then withdrawal from by the U.S. was planned in detail as early as 2009, as it means justifying the long sought-after war with Iran. In the 2009 paper, Which Path to Persia? Options, a New American Strategy Toward Iran, there's a PDF format, you can look it for yourselves. The corporate financer-funded Brookings Institution would first admit the complications of U.S.-led military aggression against Iran. As is added, any military operation against Iran will likely be very unpopular around the world and require the proper international context. Both to ensure the logistical support the operation would require to minimize the blowback from it. The paper then lays out how the U.S. could appeal to the world as a peacemaker and depicts Iran's betrayal of a very good deal as a pretext for an otherwise reluctant U.S. military response. The best way to minimize international opprobrium and maximize support, however grudging or covert, is to strike only when there is a widespread conviction that the Iranians were given, but then rejected, a superb offer, one so good that only a regime determined to acquire nuclear weapons and acquire them for the wrong reasons would turn it down. Under those circumstances, the United States or Israel could portray its operations as taken in sorrow, not anger. And at least some in the international community would conclude that the Iranians brought it on themselves by refusing a very good deal. Interesting there, right? So this is how these groups think. And from the 2009 onward, that is precisely what the United States set out to achieve. First, with President Obama's signing of the 2015 nuclear deal, and up to and including President Trump's attempt to backtrack from his base on fabric claims, Iran failed to honor the agreement. The 2009 policy paper also discussed goading Iran into war, claiming, with emphasis added, of course, with provocation, the international diplomatic and domestic political requirements of an invasion of Iran would be mitigated, and more outrageous the Iranian provocation and the less that the United States is seen to be goading Iran, the more these challenges would be diminished. In the absence of a sufficiently horrific provocation, meeting these requirements would be daunting. Unmentioned directly, but also an obvious method for achieving Washington's goal of provoking war with Iran would be the U.S. simply staging an Iranian provocation itself. Okay, so as the U.S. has done in Vietnam following the Gulf of Tonkin incident, or U.S. fabrications regarding weapons of mass destruction, Washington claimed Iraq held in its possession. The U.S. has a clear track record of not just simply provoking provocations, but staging them itself. The Brookings paper even admits to the unlikelihood of Iran falling into Washington's trap laminating. It is certainly the case that if Washington saw such a provocation, it could take action that might make it more likely that Tehran would do so. Although being too obvious about this could nullify the provocation. However, since it would be to Iran to make the provocative move, which Iran has been wary of doing most times, in the past, the United States would never know for sure when it would get the requisite Iranian provocation. In fact, it might never come at all. The alleged sabotage of oil tankers off the shore of the UAE in May, and now additional attacks this month, could be the beginning of a series of staged provocations aimed at leveraging the recent listing of IRGC as a terrorist organization. Coupled with increased economic pressure as a result of the U.S. sanction reinitiated after the U.S.-owned withdrawal from the Iran deal. So, same old song and dance, right? Absolutely. Synergies toward war. The U.S. has already attempted to leverage allegations in May of Iranian sabotage to further build its case against Iran. Washington hopes that either war or at least the impending threat of war, coupled with crippling economic sanctions and continued support of political and armed sedition within Iran itself, will create the synergies required for dividing and destroying the Iranian political order. In a wider regional context, the U.S. has seen political losses, particularly in Iraq, where Iranian influences have been on the rise. Militarily, U.S.-backed proxy forces have been defeated in Syria, with Iran and Russia both establishing permanent and significant footholds there. Despite the setbacks, the success of Washington's designs against Iran will still depend mainly on the Americans' ability to offer political and economic incentives, coupled with equally effective threats to friend and foe alike, in order to isolate Iran. How likely is this to succeed remains questionable. Decades of U.S. sanctions, covert and overt aggressions, as well as proxy wars, have left Iran resilient and with more influence across the region now than ever. Still, Washington's capacity for sowing regional destruction of dividing and destroying Iran should not be underestimated. The international creation withdrawal from the Iran deal, the U.S. persistent military presence in the Middle East, and sanctions aimed at Iran all indicate that U.S. policymakers remain dedicated isolating and undermining Iran. It will continue to do so until its geopolitical goals are met, or until a new national order creates conditions in the Middle East and throughout the global economy, making U.S. regime change against Iran impossible. That's right. It's very interesting, on this whole scenario. Poke the bear. Put many traps around it until they belly up. But one thing for sure, folks, this is very unnecessary. Very unnecessary indeed. This is what the order wants the banksters manifest on. Those are the areas you have to really look at. Why we got to be the empire of the world. They talk about attacking Iran for a very long time. For their own convenience. That's why guys like John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, throw their posteriors onto the front line. Let's see how tough they really are. Nothing more than a cruel hoax and a monumental lie. And that's the truth. And writers of the Federalist and any Federalist paper said the same thing about how dangerous empires are. In a different point of view. That's why a person like myself, and oh my God, yeah. Okay, cool. Individual like myself always believe in that. The yes to a republic and no to an empire. Because it's very treacherous, my friends. It does cost a lot of money. We're broke. The whole world's in debt. We're just an example. So I always say, support a republic, not an empire. Bring all of our troops home immediately. So, next one here. What we can say, like a few articles coincide with this matter. And this one came from the Daily Bell. Fake news does more real journalism than real journalism, by Joe Jarvis. It says here all these newspapers used to have foreign bureaus. Now they don't. They call us to explain them what's happening to Moscow and Cairo. Most of the outlets are reporting on world events from Washington. The average reporter we talk to is 27 years old, and their only reporting experience consists of being around political campaigns. That sees change. They literally know nothing. That's Ben Rhodes, Deputy Security Advisor for Strategic Communications under Obama. Real journalism is propaganda from Washington, D.C. This news simply quotes politicians believe the names of bills will become reality. And by hook, line, and sinker, what spy masters and the Pentagon tell them. And here we are again, being sold a justification for yet another war in the Middle East. The U.S. government claims that Iran attacked Japanese shipping vessel with mines. Iran claims this is a lie. I'm not going to pretend I know the truth, even though my initial reaction is always suspicion. But much like the reports that Assad attacked his people with chemical weapons in Syria, it's hard to see what Iran would gain from attacking the vessel. The events just seem too perfect, justifying the American already wanting to go to war. It doesn't have to be an American orchestrated force flag. It could simply be a misrepresentation, like the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which escalated the Vietnam War. The U.S. said that North Vietnam attacked its ships, but the truth was that the American ship fired the first warning shots. In the end, the American ship sustained one bullet hole and no casualties, while 4 North Vietnamese soldiers were killed. But most Americans would never hear about the Gulf of Tonkin if it wasn't for fake news like Babylon Bee. Headline reads, John Bolton, when has the government ever lied about attacks on ship in the Gulf somewhere to just to provoke a war? Then it offers a fake quote from the Trump administration, Trump's National Security Advisor, John Bolton. When has the government ever lied about ships being attacked, say in the Gulf somewhere, for the purpose of getting involved in a foreign conflict? He asked. Can you point out a single time a lie about a minor attack resulted in major unnecessary war? No, I didn't think so, he said. These attacks in the Gulf of Tonkin, the Gulf of Oman, were definitely carried out by Iran, and we need to invade it immediately before people start down the narrative. Most Americans might not know who notorious warmonger John Bolton is. Bolton's been creeping around D.C. since the Nixon administration. He was involved in the Iran-Contra scandal, was instrumental in spreading the lies about wars of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. In 2002, he gave a speech revealing this war wish list, which, surprise, surprise, included Iraq, Iran, Libya, and Syria, as well as North Korea and Cuba. What else could fake news websites help learn about John Bolton and the American policies he has contributed to? Here's one of the from the Duffel blog. Bolton cites his avoiding war in Vietnam and made criticism that he's pro-war. If I like war as much as you say I do, I wouldn't have jumped at the chance to take part in one, instead of joining the reserves to avoid being deployed. Bolton challenged reporters during a press conference on Tuesday. Bolton went on referenced his distinguished record of not going to war, sources said. He presented reporters with a copy of his Yale 25th reunion book, in which wrote that he avoided service in Vietnam because he had no desire to die in South Asian rice paddy. That last year from the quote from the yearbook is actually 100% true, by the way. I'll have you guys go to war, but with my give me a bowl of Palmolive soap. So John Bolton admits one thing: he's a Palmolivist. Let's have everyone else get his hands dirty. So we'll see what this douchebag has to say. We'll do more about this douchebag. The classic fake news site, The Onion, also took the opportunity last month to hint at the truth in a fake sort of way with the headlines: "Bleeding John Bolton stumbled to the Capitol building claiming that Iran shot him." And is it right here? And finally, one more from Babylon Bee. In a brazen act of aggression, Iran deploys its country right next to our aircraft carrier. If you want the truth, you better be off getting your news from fake news websites. You don't have to play by the rules of the corrupt politicians, the manipulative media, and brainwashed peers. That's all I gotta say about that. I think that's awesome. Good job there, Mr. Jarvis. I have to agree. Let's throw that sleaze bag, glam boy, imperial neocon douche, John Bolton, in the front line of battle. Come on, Johnny. You sound real tough. Can you back it up once again? If not, put your testicles in your own mouth and shut up. Despise people like you. And that when Donald Trump had him as national security advisor, is like let's do a seance. Let's raise Gabriel Brzezinski from the dead as well. Man, all these neocon demonods, man. It is very insulting to my intelligence, folks. That's why I say the past is today's greatest teacher, and these clowns, these ingrates like Mr. Bolton, always want to use the same old garbage over and over again. He believes in recycling junk. So, always observe responsibly. Don't fall for the hype and hoopla. I don't really watch the idiot box or listen what the bobbleheads have to say on TV. I like to get facts and do my homework and go further. I don't have all the answers either. But I'm not going to fall for the deception. What did he learn from 9/11? Not a damn thing. That's all I got to say about this fool. And it says here, this one came from the American Free Press. And you have a chance to subscribe to them. It was, they're white supremacists. Like, no, they're not. You see things a lot bigger, but it's interesting about what you get this from Paul Craig Roberts. It says here, lies about World War I abound. This is what Mr. Craig Roberts has to say. My generation associates dystopias, such as George Orwell's 1984 with the Soviet Union, a country in which explanations were controlled and criticism of Stalin would land a person in the gulag. We thought the United States and our life here much differently, but with the passage of time, the differences between life in the Soviet Union in the 20th century and the life in the Western world today is disappearing. Today, journalist Julian Assange is undergoing the same kind of state terror and torture as any Soviet dissident, if not worse. The Western media is as controlled as the Soviet media, with print, TV, and public radio serving as a propaganda ministry for government and the interest groups that control government. Social media such as Facebook and Twitter are systematically denying their platforms to those who express views who are not supportive of the ruling order and its agendas. It has turned out to be easy to get rid of the First Amendment guarantee of free speech, as the media have neither the ability nor the intention of exercising it. It was a mistake for my generation to associate Orwell's memory hole and falsified history only with fictional or real dystopias. I always pronounce these words incorrectly at times, but hopefully I'm doing this one right. Falsified history was all around us. We just didn't know enough to spot it. What living and learning has taught me is that history tends to always be falsified, and historians who insist on the truth suffer for it. It has been established that many of the ancient historians are unreliable because they were court historians who sought material benefit by their writing to please a ruler. In my time, many an historian has written for income from book sales by enthralling the public with tales of glorious victories over demonized enemies that justify all the sons, grandsons, brothers, fathers, uncles, husbands, friends, and cousins who were sacrificed for the sake of capitalist ornament profits. No publisher wants a truthful account that no one would buy because of the stark portrayal of the politeness of the deaths of loved ones. Everyone, or almost so, wants to think that their loss was a noble cause and was, quote, worth it, unquote. With few exceptions, English-speaking historians have put out the blame for both wars on Germany. This is a false history. The first real historian of World War I was called at the time of the Great War or the World War, was Harry Elmer Barnes. Barnes was a professor of historical sociology at Smith College and William Bayard Cutting Fellow History at Columbia University. His book, The Genesis of World War, was published in 1926 by Alfred A. Knopf in New York. Instead of covering up, as expected, the Allied crimes and treachery against Germany, Barnes told the truth. The German Kaiser, a relative of the British and Russian royal families, was known throughout the world as a peacemaker, praised by the New York Times for that role. It is known and indisputable fact that the German government acted for peace until Germany, the last power to mobilize. Had to mobilize or be overrun by Russia and France, who were allied with the British against Germany. Never before in history has the very last power to mobilize been blamed for starting the war. But the facts never get in the way of court historians. The genesis of war was desired on a two-part of the Russian Tsar's minister for Constantinople and the French president for territory, Alsace-Lorraine, lost to Germany in the 1870 Franco-Prussian War. These schemers used Austria's response to the assassination of the Austrian Archduke in Serbia, which they likely orchestrated to declare war, as Germany was a protector of the Austrian-Hungary Empire. President Woodrow Wilson secured an armistice to the World War, which had seamlessly destroyed millions of lives, by promising Germany that if she agreed to an armistice, there would be no territorial losses for Germany and no reparations. When Germany agreed to the armistice, it was Germany that occupied territories, the opposing camps. There were no foreign troops on German territory. As soon as Germany disengaged, the British put a food blockade that forced starving Germans to submit to the exploitative Versailles Treaty that violated every promise that President Wilson had made. Some intelligent people, including the most famous economist of the 20th century, John Maynard Keynes, said that the Versailles Treaty and exercise the cover-up for who would cause the war guaranteed a future war, and they, not the grasping corrupt establishment, were right. For this truth-telling efforts, Harry Elmer Barnes was declared by the court historian to be German agent paid to write a false history. As Barnes' voice was greatly outnumbered, the history of the Great War remained foremost falsified through the 20th century. Barnes was vindicated in 2014 when Christopher Clark at Cambridge University published The Sleepwalkers, How Europe Went to War in 1914. Clark added to Barnes' evidence that the Great War resulted from a plot by two Russian government ministers and the President of France to steal coveted territory from Germany and Turkey. But after 100 years after the war, who's around to care? All the people who died in the war, as well as their bereaved families who suffered from the plot of three evil men, are dead and gone. The consciousness of the world has already been distorted by a century of false history. A false history that set up Germany for blame again, and this time for World War II. This is why, folks, you got to look at all sides of these things. You got parasites, political parasites all over the world. And Woodrow Wilson is one of them. You know, he was a racist pig. And at least he made a mistake, but at least he admitted he screwed up by signing the Federal Reserve Act into law. That's okay, right? Yeah, Woodrow Wilson wasn't a great president. And what happened here was totally unacceptable. Keo Bono, who benefits every major war, is a bankster war. That's what they're trying to do right now with Iran. The banksters will benefit. They don't care about any of us, regardless who wins, who loses. Doesn't matter. And Mr. Barnes been condemned. And now he's dead. It doesn't matter. Everyone involved. This is why, folks, you got to look at everything across the board. Think for yourselves, observe responsibly. It's a lot more complex than they teach us in school. See, the victors write the history books. And that's a fact. So go further in what they teach us. And trust me, you'll feel a lot better in the long run. An interesting quote. It says here by B.B. King, the beautiful thing about learning is that no one can take it away from you. He is absolutely correct. I'm going to do one more here from the Bob Livingston letter. And of course, this week, news that wasn't. And Bob Livingston has here, curing, faking, executing, quoting, and neutralizing the most cancerous, robotic, propagandic Lincolnist you and Bernie like fakeries in the week's fake news. And as we have to say here, Joe Biden is a cancer and should cure himself first. We expected Hitlerity when creepy, sleepy Joe Biden hit the campaign trail, and so far he hasn't disappointed. Since announcing his candidacy just under 2 months ago, Biden has already been hit by charges of plagiarism twice, gotten handsy with a young girl at a campaign stop, and declared that the president he'll cure cancer. A cynic would surmise here that Biden is, in his own stumbling, fumbling, goofy, and dumb way, plagiarizing Barack Obama. Remember that Obama in his June 3rd, 2008 nomination victory speech declared his nomination was a moment that the sick will get health care, the jobless would get jobs, oceans would quit rising, the planet would heal, and wars would be ended. Sadly, none of that happened under his watch. Things are even more dire now, even after we live under 8 years of Obamacide, because the oceans are rising so fast and the planet is in such dire straits from climate change that the ditzy commie New York representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said we'll be dead in 12 years from climate change. And the fake Mexican presidential non-contender Rob Francis, call me Beat Beto, old Rourke says we'll all be dead in 10. And it seems that Biden is to a cancer cure what Obama was to climate change and wars. Biden appointed to head up Obama's cancer moonshot initiative after Obama, during his first State of the Union address, challenged America to end cancer. Out that the initiative sprang at Biden Cancer Initiative, a nonprofit that seems to have profited some Biden cronies very well, even if it hasn't yet found for a cure. As Harper Magazine's note, a New York Times investigation found that 3/4 of the money spent by Biden Cancer Initiative went to salaries and other compensation, including more than $500 million for its president. Greg Simon, formerly the executive director of Biden Cancer Moonshot Task Force during the Obama administration. This seems to be a standard operating procedure for Biden Foundation. Salaries account for 45% of the spending of Beau Biden Foundation for Protection of Children during 2016-2017. Aside from a brief stint as a lawyer in private practice in his early life, Biden has been nothing but a politician living off taxpayers' teeth. Whoops, sorry about that, hit the table. He's certainly never done anything to advance cancer research unless you count making sure his cronies rake in huge salaries and generous benefits. Cancer rates continue to climb though the mortality rate has been declining for nearly 20 years with no help from Biden apparently. During the same Iowa rally in which he promised to cure cancer, Biden touted a new slogan, "Let's make America, America again." It's a line he stole from disgraced lawyer Michael Avenatti, who's now facing a number of federal charges for defrauding his law clients, including former Trump accuser and porn star actress Stormy Daniels, who used the line in London in July 2018 while teasing his own presidential run. Biden's history of stealing other people's thoughts and words is long and sorry. It started while he was in law school when he lifted content for 5 of 15 pages he wrote for a law review article. His 1988 presidential aspirations were derailed after he stole a life narrative from a British politician as used as his own. Aside from his creepiness, it seems there's very little about Biden that isn't fake. Even his hair is not real. He was the senator for 36 years and vice president for 8. If he hasn't cured cancer or accomplished much of anything else in 44 years of public life, I'm calling his vow to cure it elected fake news. And of course, he's one little guy who goes, yes sirree, I am the New World Order's butt boy. That's Joe Biden. Member of the Council of Foreign Relations, one big warmongering demigod as well. Anti-freedom, hate the Bill of Rights culture, and you knuckleheads out there that want to kiss before he walks on, want Joe Biden as your president. We going to have your young little kids, little girls, go up to him and he's trying to just grope him in his own little way. Yeah, you see what Jeff Sessions did. Smacked his hand. And you know, I'm not a Jeff Sessions fan, but you know what? I got to give him respect for protecting his granddaughter. Yeah, that's the kind of person you want. Another one world order stooge. So we'll continue on here. Deep fake Mark Zuckerberg. Technology now exists that allows people to a single person photograph or snippet of a video of a person. Merge it with short audio of that person speaking and create a video of that person saying or doing whatever the creator wants him or her to say or do. These are called deep fakes. This week, 2 artists and an advertising company created a deepfake of Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, seen at a desk, similarly giving a sinister speech about Facebook's power, according to a report and Vice.com. The fake news video was lifted from a real video of a speech Zuckerberg made in 2017. The deepfake, which Zuckerberg discusses in being in control of data of billions of people and how could it be used to control the future, was posted to the Instagram social media platform. According to Vice.com, the deepfake of Zuckerberg is one of several made by Candy in collaboration with posters, including one of Kim Kardashian and Donald Trump as part of Spectre, an exhibition that took place as part of the Sheffield Doc Fest in the UK. We will treat this content the same way we treat all misinformation on Instagram, a spokesperson for Instagram told Motherboard. If third-party fact-checkers marks it false, it will filter it from Instagram's recommendation services like Explorer and hashtag pages. The Zuckerberg video hits a Facebook dealing with fallout from a doctored video that showed that Democrat House Speaker Nancy Pelosi appearing drunk. As we told you last week in this space, the video slowed down Pelosi's movements without lowering her voice to make her appear as a mumbling, word-slurring drunk, as opposed to the rambling, word-stumbling, and train of thought losing dementia patient she usually seems to be. The Pelosi video forced Facebook to take a position on whether it would allow fakes or manipulated videos and images to remain on the site. The company allowed it to remain, but deprioritized it so that it appears less frequently in people's feeds. The company also places alongside third-party fact-checker information. As Vice.com reports, Neil Potts, Facebook's director of public policy, said that if someone posted a manipulative video from Zuckerberg like the one of Pelosi, it would stay up. Now there's a deepfake Zuckerberg implying he's in total control of billions of people's stolen data and ready to control the future on Facebook-owned Instagram. That stance will be put to the test. Given that Zuckerberg already looks like a robot, I'm not sure how anyone would know whether his appearing in the video is a deep fake or legitimate video. Of course. He's probably high stressed out because everything's being exposed from which is under his name. You know, you could say overseer running amok. So let's check this out. Anti-North Korean Propo. The deep state has testified that President Donald Trump might work out a peace deal with North Korea. After all, we've been in an official state of war with them since the armistice was signed in July 1953. This allowed the expenditure of untold billions of dollars to keep troops stationed in South Korea. The military-industrial complex can't abide the thought of peace breaking out and having to bring those troops home. So they've done everything they can do to undermine the talks. As May ended, the propaganda media almost as once began pushing the story that North Korea had executed its negotiating team over the latest round of broken negotiations. Bloomberg reported on May 30th that the former top nuclear envoy to the United States and 4 other ministry officials were executed after the last failed summit. Other state media organs and the echo chamber followed suit. Propagandists are available who's who of fake news organs. According to Gray Zone, the story was parroted by the New York Times, Reuters, Wall Street Journal, The Hill, The Daily Beast, Fox News, CNBC, Time, ABC News, Financial Times, The Telegraph, Vice, Rolling Stone, The Independent, The Washington Times, The New York Post, HuffPost, France 24, The Japan Times, Haaretz, The Times of Israel, Democracy Now!, the U.S. government's Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and many more. Usual suspects also posted the stories to Twitter. That would be fake news pundits like Chris Hayes of MSNBC, Russia expert, Julie Off of GQ Magazine, Yashar Ali of New York Magazine and HuffPost, Peter Baker of the New York Times and MSNBC, Katie Fang of NBC and MSNBC, David Roberts of Vox, Josh Smith of Reuters, Vivian Salama of the Wall Street Journal, Kathleen Collins of CNN, Jeff Bennett of NBC, Andrew DeSadio of Politico, David Nakamura of the Washington Post, and others. But that would, in the same world, would be an embarrassing moment for the propaganda media that executed nuclear envoy turned up at a musical performance sitting a few seats away from the North Korean dictator. They were shown on state media. As the Gray Zone notes, if you read carefully toward the end of the initial Bloomberg propaganda piece, you'll see this little disclaimer. Previous South Korea media reports about senior North Korea officials being executed following the talks have proven false. Which probably explains why the U.S. media were so ready to pick the story up. Here's another one here. CNN's Brian Stetler retweets a phony Lincoln quote. There's probably nothing more rampant on the internet than fake quotes attributed to historical figures. On July 4, 2017, the CNN Politics Twitter account sent out tweets with a photograph of Abraham Lincoln and the quote, "Let the people know the facts and the country will be safe." Oh yeah. The reason why I'm laughing, folks, if you read something about Abraham Lincoln and it comes to the freedom of the press, oh man, just check it out for yourselves. All right. The account was quickly hammered with response, noting that Lincoln never said such a thing. Last week, CNN's Brian Stetler reprised a tweet between it for the third or fourth time after ESPN's Michelle Steele tweeted as one of her favorite quotes etched on the wall of what the Tribune Tower in Chicago that was again attributed to Lincoln. In other words, even when someone tells CNN something they're doing is fake news, they keep doing it. Sort of like going on and about the non-existing Trump-Russian collision. Of course, they want to do the whole song and dance. And they wonder why their ratings are tanking. Of course, and there's people still send me stuff on this? Come on. Internet has survived a whole year without net neutrality. We're still here. Back in December 2017, in the wake of FCC's decision to repeal net neutrality, Senator Bernie Sanders, communist for Vermont, has to say, with the decision, the internet and its free exchange of information as we have come to know, it will cease to exist. 6 months later, on June 11, 2018, net neutrality rules were officially removed from the books. So it's been a year and a half since Sanders predicted the end of the internet and 12 months of the internet Wild West without government riding roughshod over broadband providers. Guess what? We're still here exchanging information for free just like we have been doing it for years. Bernie Sanders is fake news. Interesting there, of course, you got suppressing, shadow banning, all that. But there's other decentralized sites where people will share free flow of information. So you always got to look at everything in the bigger picture, folks. Don't live in fear. Don't live in the hype and hoopla. And don't run to the hills. Vigilance is the key, of course. Examining things responsibly, that is key. I've been saying this for a long time, my friends. Just keep plugging away. Always don't fall for the fear factor. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us on social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or anything you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to the quorum. Furthermore, I'll leave all my social media sites and email contacts, including the footnotes of this episode on my Spreaker page. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that maniac resistance, something for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.